Hey guys, and welcome back to the life cycle of a frog part 3. This will be our final video of the series, which is kind of sad because I've really enjoyed doing this video and stuff, but don't worry, there will be more series coming out in the future. As of right now, I got Seuss with me. He's kind of through my hair and down my back looking at his enclosure back there. Hopefully I will be upgrading him soon. More so not the enclosure because I just upgraded him to that, but more so the stuff in it. I've got some ideas. I may make my own background with it. Don't know quite yet. But anyway, so this is Seuss. He's hiding, but once he comes out, I will show you him a little bit more. And I also may have Juno and maybe a few other reptiles in this video since I can't really get out and hold Tater because he is a frog. He'd be hopping around. He wouldn't sit still. The light may bother his eyes a little bit too since he's kind of nocturnal. And also, you know, you can't handle frogs as much. They're not a very hands-on reptile or amphibian pet, so you can't really hold them as much. So we're just going to let him relax, but we will have clips of him in this video. This is Seuss. Say hi, Seuss. See, I was being a little bit grumpy earlier. We don't know why. Maybe it's because he hasn't seen the light and the camera and stuff before, but he was a little bit on the grumpy side. But anyways, he's fine now. I will eventually do a video how to handle and be safe with snakes that are a little bit on the grumpy side, because it's just like us. You know, animals have their bad days too, and we just gotta learn to listen to them and respect them on the days they don't want to come out. But Seuss wanted to come out. He was just very scared. Also, remember, if you have any questions about this video or the previous videos before in this series, please leave a question down in the comments and we will answer them. If we can't make a full video on it, we will. And also, if you want to send in a video of a question, you can do that too and be on one of our next videos. Frogs are a part of a diverse and very large carnivorous group of amphibians that are short-bodied and tailless, called the order of Anura. Or Anura. I don't really know how to pronounce it, and I've heard it both ways, so we'll just go with that. It's kind of neat because to me, the order of Anura that it's called actually sounds like a fantasy race that you'd read in a fantasy book, like elves or something, which is kind of neat actually. It's really neat. Okay. Oh, okay. Frogs are almost everywhere. They are ranging from the tropics to the subtropic regions. The most, majority of the diversity of frogs, though, are found in the tropical rainforest because it's pretty much perfect habitat for them. But you can find frogs almost anywhere, no matter where you live. You can probably go out during day, night, according to what kind of frogs are around you, and probably find a frog, especially on the rainy days. There are over 6,300 species of frogs, and it actually adds up to about 88% of amphibians. The oldest fossil of frog, also called proto-frog, appeared in the early Triassic of Madagascar. We will actually put a picture so you can see him. It's actually pretty neat. Okay, here's a little riddle for you. All toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads. It makes no sense, right? Well, let me explain. To be completely accurate, toads are actually a classification of frogs. Frogs and toads are both amphibians, but they are different in quite many different ways, and I will explain some to you. The best way to normally tell the difference between a toad and a frog is because frogs will have moist, slimy-like skin, and toads will have dry, bumpy skin. Now, of course, you might want to be careful according to where you live, touching any kind of frog or toad that may be out in your yard, because you never know if they may have a substance on their skin that may be toxic or cause a rash to humans. So definitely do your research before you try to pick up any. Frogs normally spend most of their time around water, so that's probably where you will find frogs most of the time, while toads normally have burrows and more in landy areas. That's also why you see more toads in your backyard than frogs. Unless you live by a lake, then you'll probably find more frogs. And if you remember from our egg video, you will remember that toads actually lay in a strand of eggs and frogs actually lay in clusters. So that's how you can tell if the eggs are frogs and toads. A very interesting frog that I will add a photo so you can actually see them is the glass frog. The glass frog has such translucent skin that you can actually see its heart beating. Now that might be creepy to some and cool to others, but it's actually quite interesting. Now I get asked a lot, does frogs shed their skin? Much like snakes, like Seuss here, who's getting a little bit antsy, so I might have to put him up. But frogs do shed their skin. Just, it's a lot thinner than snake skin, and most of the time they eat it. So that's why you don't find frog shed. There's actually a few times we have gotten out Tater while he's in the middle of a shed, and it's quite interesting, but their shed's quite sticky and slimy. It's kind of gross actually, so definitely something you can't keep, and normally it's all wadded up and nasty, so sometimes he eats it and sometimes he'd rather us just give him a little mist down and just let it kind of slide off of him. Something very interesting to me with frogs, and we're going to put a video of Tater eating so you can see it for yourself, but is how they swallow their prey. Now frogs most of the time, I don't know if toads do it as much, I haven't looked that up yet, but I do know frogs will. When they swallow, their eyes will close and push down, like sink into their skull. And what that is doing is their eyeballs are actually pushing their prey down into their throat. They use those muscles to actually push the food out of their mouth and down their throat, which can be kind of weird to some because that's normally not how most animals or even us eat, but it's very interesting, and it also is very neat because when you're feeding Tater you can see when he swallows it. Sometimes when we feed him a worm though, he makes a little icky face, but he eats it anyway, so, but it's just cute. A group of birds is called flock, and a group of cows is called a herd. But did you know that a group of frogs is called an army? Yes, they are actually called an army. So if you see a group of frogs, you have a army of frogs. I think that's so cute. I just see little frogs with like night helmets and stuff. Oh, that's cute. That's adorable. Now not everybody knows this, but if you have a pet amphibian, frogs, salamanders, anything like that, they can actually breathe through their skin. And that's why you have to be careful on handling amphibians, especially amphibian pets and such like that, because sometimes our hands and stuff will carry oils on them, or we may have something on our hands that we touched before, like soap or whatsoever, and that can actually harm them because they use their skin to actually breathe. Now they can breathe through their nose like normal, but their skin's very sensitive, so we've got to be very careful. That's also why I'm not holding Tater and holding Seuss as of right now. So just in case this doesn't line up, if it does we might not worry about it, I don't know. But the battery did die, so we had to wait a few hours, let the battery charge, and start back. So here we are. I've got Juno with me now. Hi baby. Hi. Yeah, she's doing a lot better. She's actually going to be going into shed soon. You can tell because her belly is really pink. Do you see it, Emmy? Mm-hmm. So she's about to go into shed soon, but she isn't like blind or anything yet, so I went ahead and got her out. But she is doing wonderful. She's clicking a little bit, but nothing as bad as it was. I believe she's doing a lot better. We're going to get up with the vet and probably do maybe another round of the antibiotics. I don't think it quite gave her enough of what she needed, so we're going to go ahead and do another round since it worked so well. And of course she didn't like it, but we want her to be good and healthy so we can use her further in education. Okay, so back to frogs and where we left off. Most people don't believe me when I say this, but frogs actually do have teeth. Now most frogs only have teeth on the upper jaw, and it's mostly just used to like hold prey until they can swallow it, but they do in fact have teeth. They're, depending on the frog, it's not very sharp or not very big. On my Pac-Man frog, Tater, they're not a very pleasant frog to get bit by. There is a lot worse, but definitely not a frog that you would enjoy getting bit by or would probably be fine with afterwards. I mean, you'd be fine, but it's pretty painful. And it's hard to get them to let go, from what I've heard. So he's only bit me once. Thankfully, my fingernail caught his teeth before like my skin did. So okay, so now time for some history. Where are you going? Oh, look how pretty you are. Oh, look at those little tongue flicks. Okay, back to frogs. We gotta go back to frogs. I'll give you your own video one day, okay? Frogs play many roles in folklore and fairy tales throughout history. In fact, there was actually a Brothers Grimm, I believe, story about the frog prince that actually had a frog in it. In ancient Egypt, frogs actually symbolized fertility, and also in ancient Greek, they actually symbolized fertility and harmony. Now, I don't know if this is for sure or not, but just guessing, since frogs are so very vocal, most of them, I would see harmony probably going pretty well with that. Frogs are still used commonly in even today's culture. You probably don't recognize it as much, but they are used like through everything. A few of them that I can name off the top of my head is like Kermit the Frog, Disney's Princess and the Frog, Pepe the Frog from the memes, and even there is a cute little frog character with Hello Kitty. So frogs are still used in today's culture, which is super cool, and they're so cute, you know, why not use them? They are also, one thing that I looked up, I didn't mean to stumble across this fact, but I thought it was pretty interesting. They are one of the most commonly used animals in fashion. So therefore, like, there's all kinds of shirts and stuff with little frogs or frog-inspired fashion, which I think is pretty neat and probably used because frogs do have very cute faces. Now, frogs are so cute and awesome pets to have, but I recommend doing your research before you get a pet frog because there's so many out there with so many choices from small frogs to big frogs to in between frogs, arboreal frogs, or frogs that even burrow. So you have plenty of choices, but just do your research because sometimes frogs are not the easiest pet at all. So, and you gotta remember that you just can't hold them as much as you would a snake or any other type of animal. So make sure it's one that you're okay with mostly watching rather than holding. Hopefully one day in the future I might make a pet frog video so you can see everything you might need to know. I might go over some of the most commonly used chosen pet frogs and then go over some things you might need to know before you get into them, because I know one thing, I'm still learning because there's the internet and everything else. It's a lot to learn about TATER. So there's a lot to learn with these animals, but it's very rewarding in the end. As for now, I want to thank you for watching our first series and enjoying it with us. But before we go, we have an awesome photo and question sent in by some fans. You probably remember them from last week's video, but they found this awesome snake shed and want us to figure out what kind of snake it came from.
What'd you girls find?
Snake skin. Snake skin.
Do you have a question for Addie?
What kind of snake used to live in here?
Used to live in here. Whose home was this? We found it in North Carolina.
It's a snake's home.
Yeah.
So there might be a snake around here, but we want to know what kind of snake it is.
Okay, maybe Miss Addie can answer that for us.
So by looking at the snake shed, which is very hard to figure out which snake it come from, especially if the snake's not around, you don't know what kind of snakes are in the territory, and also if it's torn apart. But you can tell by the scale size on the skin that it's probably most likely not a venomous snake such as a timber rattlesnake. Even though the skin is very large, it doesn't have any kind of tinted patterning on it or larger scales to identify it as a rattlesnake. Since they also told me some information that this was found near water and it was kind of stretched up above some small hanging tree limbs and stuff, I'm going to guess it's probably one of the North Carolina water snake species. Probably, I'm leaning toward maybe the brown water snake. It is a pretty large snake and it gets pretty round, about as big as Juno here. Probably a female, and going by off of what season this was, I would probably say it was her shed before she laid. So that means she went to go lay some babies after that shed and is going to have more little water snakes going around. So we want to thank you guys for sending in this awesome video of it, and I hope this information helped you. Now, if you want to figure out exactly what snake it is, sadly, that's extremely hard, especially like if you can't see the skin in person, can't see the area or know the area very well, it can be very hard, especially since some snakes' pattern and stuff changes from when they're juvenile to adults. So it's sometimes very hard, but going off of my guess, I would guess a water snake. And I'm pretty sure that's what you guys guessed too. So awesome observation there. So I can show this to you guys since I've had Juno and Seuss both in this video. But as for what I was talking about with the coloration difference in the scales, this is a shed from Juno. And as you can tell, yeah, you can kind of see it. It doesn't really have no pattern on it. And the scales are pretty tiny. And the belly scales are pretty large. So that tells me that she's a ball python and that she's a light colored ball python, and even though she has some patterning on her, as you can tell, you look very closely and there's some smokiness to it, but not really anything that's on there to tell you exactly what pattern she had. So that's a tricky thing with snakes, but let me open this baggie here. This is a shed from Seuss, who we just had out, and as you can tell, he's a very darker snake, and therefore produces a darker shed. Now, you can sort of tell his pattern a little bit more with this. Same size scales and such, but a darker stripe down the back. But same scales and everything, so it lets me know it's ball python, but a darker colored ball python. So this is what I kind of mean. I'll show you side by side. This is Juno. Let me flip it around. Juno and Seuss. So you can kind of tell a little bit of the difference. So that's what I'm saying. So if it's a light colored snake, it's very hard to tell like what kind of snake it is because of the coloring. But normally if you have a, let's say, a rattlesnake with a very dark and prominent patterning, it will actually show up on the shed. So just to keep that in mind next time you find a shed, it might help you identify. But mostly going off the scale size, shape, and belly scale size and shape can also help you too. Anyways guys, we want to thank you for watching another one of our videos. Hopefully I'm going to have more videos coming out soon. Might be a little bit before we do another series because there's some other subjects I want to get on. We actually have a little baby snake with us right now that I want to use in a small snake video that, well, he's still small, so I would love to do that, and probably a few more other cool videos, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. Stay wild, guys.